My name is Mark Baker. I'm owner of Baker's Green Acres here in northern Michigan. It's a general purpose farm. We base what we do on the pastured system. We don't give our animals any antibiotics or growth hormones, anything like that. And we started this place in 2004 when I retired from the Air Force. In 2011, in December time frame, I was informed that the pigs that I raise are considered feral by the state of Michigan. I was told this by one of the chefs that I sell to. And I checked into that, and sure enough, the Department of Natural Resources had come out with a list of characteristics, 9 characteristics to be exact, or 9 line items. There's several characteristics in each line, but and they said that if your pig has even one of these characteristics, that your pig is feral. And they added feral pigs to the invasive species order. And if you keep your pigs, then you are in violation of the invasive species order, which would be harboring an invasive species. And if your listeners don't know what feral means, of course they can look it up, but it's an animal that was domesticated and then was either released or abandoned or escaped, and the animal rewilds itself in order to survive, kind of like a dog that maybe somebody moves to a different place and they just leave their dog in their backyard. The thing has to escape out of the backyard to get something to eat. After a while, it breeds with another dog, and before you know it, you get like kind of wild dogs, but they're not really wild dogs. They're feral dogs. So the state of Michigan has made the claim that there are between 1,000 and 8,000 feral pigs roaming the countryside, doing all kinds of damage, hurting people, scaring people, killing wildlife, destroying the environment.
Is any of that true?
No, it's totally made up because we've checked insurance records and there's been absolutely no car-pig accidents. The last one was 14 years ago, and it was one pig, one car. But there's no way to know if it was a feral pig or not. It was probably just a pig off somebody's farm that got hit by a car. And also, if we did have feral pigs in the state of Michigan, you would see them on the side of the road feasting off of dead deer, because we definitely have a lot of deer in the state of Michigan, and they get hit regularly. So there's, you can't drive 20 miles without seeing a dead deer on the side of the road. And the pigs would be on those. If there were feral pigs, you would see them by the side of the road. Then you would see dead feral pigs on the side of the road because they'd get hit too. Because I raise pigs, and I can tell you, they don't get out of the way. When you're driving out there, you drive a tractor out there or something, they don't know enough to get out of the way. They'll just stand there. So anyway, the state has said that we have this tremendous problem, and their answer to the problem is to depopulate any pig with one of these characteristics. And the characteristics range from coloration, like a solid black pig, a solid brown pig, to ear structure. They say an erect ear or a floppy ear, to tail structure. They say straight tail or curly tail. So if your animals have any of those characteristics, they say your animals are feral. And they gave us until April 1st of 2012 to depopulate our animals, and that means kill them. And if we didn't, they said that they would come and, first of all, they said they'd come and they'd do it for us. They'd take us aside and then shoot our animals. I didn't believe they had the guts to do that. And then they said they would arrest us. Then they said that they would give us big fines. And then they said they would fine our associates. They said they would fine our customers. A bunch of threats. Well, those threats came after February time frame. No, wait a minute. Yes, in February of 2011, I knew that I wasn't going to comply with their order to depopulate by April of 2012.
Good for you.
So I filed suit against the state, the DNR, for clarification of the law. And they've done everything they can to stay out of court. So here it is, 2014. So it's been going on, 3 years. And I finally have a court date with them, a trial date, and that is the 11th through the 14th of March. They have done everything that they can to short-circuit the process, you know. I'm sure people know this, but I'll just say, in the states, if you don't like something that your state government throws at you, some regulation, you have the authority as an American citizen to challenge that in a court of law. That's the thing to do, because after all, people that work like the DNR, they're bureaucrats. They work for the state. They get a state paycheck. They don't know what it's like for us to be working out here on the land trying to make a living. And therefore, a lot of times, they create situations that make it very difficult for us to make a living, right? So in this case, they came out with a regulation. They said any pig with a straight tail, curly tail is illegal. If you keep it, you're a felon. We'll arrest you, a felony arrest, da-da-da-da-da. We didn't like that. We didn't agree with it. We thought it was unlawful, unconstitutional, so we challenged it in a court of law. That is what we do as American citizens.
Right.
That's the system that we use. And, of course, what they have done, though, is they've done everything that they possibly can to stay out of court. We have actually faced them down in a court of law for hearings and things like that, but not yet have we gone for a trial. We really want to get into court and have a trial where we can tell our side of the story to the judge and have a ruling made on whether this is constitutional or not.
Would that require a criminal case?
If I were arrested on felony charges, it certainly would be. But right. So far, I have not been arrested yet. So But
they are threatening you with arrest, right?
Yeah. And they threatened me with a pretty big fine too. They fined me formally. I have the paperwork. They through my local court for $700,000.
$700,000.
Yeah,
that is one heck of a fine. Wow. Mark, hold that thought. We're going to come back and we're going to bring things up to date and tell the listeners about your recent pressure that they have been placing on you. It's the scary stuff, folks. We need to stop this from turning into something much worse, like a Ruby Ridge type event, and we'll get to that on the other side.
The Bob Tuskin Show.
Farmer Mark Baker joins us on the Bob Tuskin Show. This is an absolutely important story to tell you about. And my colleague, Steve Stars, has a few good questions for you. I'll let him ask those questions. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, hey, Mark. I was listening to the first part. Of course, you defined the feral pigs as pigs that have wild traits that the state wants to get rid of because they claim they're causing all this damage. But you free range all of these animals, and they're not with antibiotics, and they're deleted from all of the dangerous toxins that pigs could have. So they're certainly edible. The question I have is two parts. First of all, did they define these pigs as feral pigs before you opened the farm? And did that come along later, which I presume it did? And if it did, the question is, why don't they, instead of just telling you to get rid of them, why don't they go ahead and let those animals be slaughtered and pay you market value for their worth so that you can start up again with different kinds of pigs that accordingly that they would approve? Is there a question there about that?
Yeah, well, we started the farm up in 2004, and we came out with this in 2010. So
Yeah, so they're 6 years out of date.
First question.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Answer to the second question is they said that they're not going to pay for these pigs, because this amounts to a takings. It's like an eminent domain case. Like if they need to put a road through your house for the good of everybody,
Right.
then they pay you fair value for your home. But
That's
they've
interesting.
said, in writing, they've said that they would not pay for these animals because these are not livestock, because they are invasive species. That's what they've said in writing.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and that I got a comment on that though. At what point do we dig our heels in when some bureaucrat from the state decides that what we're doing they don't like, and decide to come up with some regulatory action to limit what we're doing? Now, when I started the Mangalitsa bit, the pigs we raised are Mangalitsas. They're out of Hungary. It's the very best pig that you can get in the United States right now. And when we started this up, we made a decision to do it based on the traits of the animals and what our customers would want. So if I were to raise the pig that the state wants me to raise, I don't think anybody would want it. And I certainly wouldn't have the advantage in business that I do with this animal. And it was a decision that we made based on the research that we did. So at what point do you say, no, I'm not going to let the state tell me what breed of cow that I can raise or what breed of cat I can have in my home. It is really none of their business. And we have to back them off by telling them no. We're just not
Well,
gonna comply
especially
with
after
it.
the fact, as you pointed out, that this was a law
Right.
that came down 6 years later. And it is an eminent domain type case because you were already there. You had these pigs. They are the finest in the world, as you pointed out. They are considered livestock and the finest of pork line livestock in places like Hungary. And so I think they need to pay you at least market value and more for your trouble and help you get started with, well, you may not want to use what they want to use, but at least they ought to accomplish the purpose of recompensing your investment in this if they've changed the law, and certainly it doesn't make any sense. So that's my opinion.
On some level, it's still disturbing, Steve, that they would take good quality food away from people, because even if they bought these pigs, they wouldn't give the hungry people food. It's not like they're going to buy the pigs and then set up a food line for people to come enjoy this gourmet pork.
Sure, they want to
so
waste. They want to waste the pigs, is what they really
They want to waste
do.
them, literally waste them.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Now, Mark, take us up to date though, because there's a very urgent aspect of your case that we want to ring the alarm on.
Yeah, this is probably the most disturbing thing. This would be a week ago, last Friday, I received an email from a former associate. You see, the state has really worked our business over, so a lot of the people that I used to do business with, I'm not able to do business with anymore. When you lock horns with the state, especially Department of Ag, they have a way of intimidating restaurants and retail stores that, to make them not want to buy your products. And we raise beef, pork, and chicken here, and had a pretty good business going before this all started. But this fellow sent me an email, and he had a conversation with a USDA field agent, and the field agent was asked in friendly conversation what he thought about the feral swine issue as it pertains to myself and my farm, Baker's Green Acres. And apparently the guy came unglued, and he said that either he or anyone from Michigan Department of Agriculture were allowed to come near me or my property, and that this order had come down from their chain of command. All right, so here's a guy from the USDA saying that his chain of command at the USDA has said he's not allowed to come anywhere near me or my farm, and that only armed agents from the Department of Natural Resources could come near me or my property, and that I am being portrayed as a gun-wielding lunatic. And I have that email, and it's just like I said. So here's why this is a dangerous thing. When this comes down from the top, all uniformed personnel will get this information. And when they approach me, traffic stop, whatever, they're kind of on a hair trigger, which puts me in danger. And the fact that I know about this kind of puts them in danger a little bit too, because, you know, I'm worried that they are going to do something to hurt me or my children. And, you know, we see all the time these days law enforcement seems to shoot first and ask questions later. So what I did was what I should do, and then I filed a complaint, or I filed a police report with my county sheriff. I did that a week ago Saturday, and I told the sheriff's deputy that, you know, I'd give him a reasonable amount of time, but I am requesting that an investigation be open. And the reason for this is because if there's a good, solid paper trail, the people that would most likely attack me and my family would probably think it's not a good idea to do that if this paper trail exists and, you know, would be here after everything's said and done. And so I waited 9 days for the detective to call me. He did not, so I called him, and he called me back on the 10th day, and I said to him, his name is Detective Weirs, I said, I have two questions for you, Mike. Are you, or have you, or do you intend to open an investigation on this situation? And he said to me, no. And I said, okay, second question, whose call was this? And he hesitated a little bit, and he said, it was my call. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. And he says, well, wait a minute. Don't you want to know why I'm not going to do it? And I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't really matter. But, yeah, go ahead. Tell me why you're not going to do it. And he said, because it doesn't rise to the level of what we would consider criminal intent. And I think that's kind of a dumb answer, but what he did by choosing not to open an investigation was he actually puts his own personnel, his own brethren in uniform, in danger, because what he should be concerned with is, where is my head at on this whole thing? You know, do I feel that there's a threat against me? And if I do, how will that affect?
All right, Mark, hold on 1 second here. Can you hold over? Yeah, okay. We'll be back with Mark Baker in just a moment or so. I will also open up the phone lines if you want to ask Mark any questions about his case. And I want to ask Mark in particular what we can do as advocates for food freedom and patriots to help with his case.
With financial